Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Awesome. Yeah, we can get started then. So, Steve, can you t talk a little bit about when did you first start getting into like the course prep for IMGs and what kind of got you interested in this USMLE prep stuff?
Well, I've been doing this since before there was a USMLE.
Okay.
Way back when there was the National Board of Medical, the National Board exam, and the FEMGEM exam. Those that have some age will recognize that. One was for U.S. students, one was for international students. And
Yeah.
then, in their infinite wisdom, they decided this is stupid having two exams. And so they got together and produced the USMLE, which made sense. Why have different exams for different people? It just was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, I was working then in the Dean of Students office at my medical school, Rush Medical College in Chicago. And one of the assistant deans came in and said, I'm starting to put together a course to help some students that have been having difficulty. It turned out there's some students at our school that were having difficulty with the then National Board exam. So he put together, something with some of the faculty. And well, the students did very well then. They went in and took the exam and did very well. And so then, for some reason, apparently by word of mouth, nothing on his part, the word spread that that he was putting together this course because there weren't real courses back then.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, I told you I was at Rush Medical College,
Mhm.
so everyone talked about the Rush course,
Okay.
right? But they thought that meant it was a fast course,
Yeah.
not that it was named after Benjamin Rush, who signed the Declaration of Independence. So without meaning to, that's how I got started. So at one point, he walked into my office and said, "Look, I need somebody to teach the behavioral science and the ethics and the epidemiology. Can you handle that?" I said, "Yeah, sure, I guess." I mean,
Yeah.
I've got a PhD in psychology. I've been doing those kind of stuff for a long time. And I went out to California to do a course there. Um, I had the stupid idea that you all have the materials before you, so I'm going to give you other information that's not before you. So, having
Okay.
had that stupid idea to start off with, which was an ignoble beginning, I then kind of got with the program and just sort of learned to do it as I went along.
Yeah.
I'll say that whatever I can do that's good for students, it's because students have taught me to do it.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
the advantage I have when I talk to faculty at medical schools when they'd say, "Why don't we just do this for our students?" I say, "Okay, well, how many times a year do you teach your course?" And they'd
Yeah.
say, "Once." I'd say, "Yeah, I teach this material 40 times a year."
Yeah.
So even if I'm an idiot, which God willing I'm not, um,
Absolutely not.
I've got sort of hammered by just sheer experience and feedback from students what works and what doesn't work. So I've learned over the years. I'll say something
Mm.
and that gets a good response, and I'll remember that. I'll use that again. And then I say something, and everyone looks at me like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "All right, don't say that again. That doesn't work." And so over the years, students have sort of programmed me into what is effective and what's not effective. So I give the students as much credit as I give my own perseverance.
Yeah, yeah. And like for me, I go back to even my high school days, right? And always I had this one teacher, like even though the course was difficult, for example, I didn't like math growing up, but I had this one teacher who kind of changed my life when it came to math. And like the way that, that teacher explained math, it kind of hit me. I was like, hey, what, this is pretty fun. So like and I see that with a lot of students as well. They don't like biostats, they don't like epidemiology, they don't like all these kind of courses, but when they listen to your course, they're like, you know what, this is kind of fun, this is kind of interesting. I can learn a little bit more about this. I can, discover more about this. So when did you develop that kind of art of teaching?
I've told classes this from time to time. When I'm teaching biostat, epidemiology, things like that, they're lucky because I'm not a mathematician.
Okay.
In my own experience, I took statistics courses and I did well. I had an aptitude for it, but it wasn't until first year of graduate school I took a statistics course, and the guy got up and laid a bunch of stuff out on the board, and I sat there going, "Why didn't someone tell me this before?" Like it's all clear now. This is like one lecture. It's like it's all clear now because, well, because instead of, let's do this proof and let's have you memorize this formula, he talked about the thinking process.
Yeah.
And so I kind of adopted that same posture. The mathematics, it's not a surprise when I've been around doctors for a while. Doctors don't really like math that much. I mean, it's not you can't do it, but you don't like it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so when there's math, everyone's like, okay, okay, okay. Now, not like I'll brag, not like my son. My son who's like 26 now. When they gave him calculus in high school, he came home and said, "Why didn't they teach me this before? This is
Yeah.
great." I'm like, okay, Michael, most people don't say that about calculus. Oh no, this is great. This makes everything make sense. So most people are not like that, I've learned. Excuse me here.
Yeah.
So I teach the logic,
Mm.
and then the numbers just are the way we represent the logic.
Yeah. And when you're teaching logic, what's the best way to teach it? Is it through examples? Is it through conversations? Is it through maybe asking questions? Is it maybe pointing people to a different point of view? Like, because often, like what I see is like even when I was learning biostats and epidemiology, it's like you're often stuck in, a certain way of thinking, but you just need that guidance to see the other picture.
I have a colleague who, well, unfortunately, just died during COVID several years ago at the age of 99. So we mourn him, but
Yeah.
on another level, we don't.
Yeah.
Um, Had it tacked up on his over his desk a sign that says, "We keep teaching students the answers when they don't understand the questions."
Yeah. That's really true.
So I try to make sure in my conversation that they understand what the question is.
Yeah.
If I give you a tool and you're going to be like, okay, I got this tool, but so what? But if you and I are building a boat together and you're like, gee, I gotta, make this wood smooth, and I go, I got just the tool that'll do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Now you're happy to learn how to use the tool and listen to some instruction and go through it. But if I just sat down with you and said, "Here's how you use a hammer, here's how you use a screwdriver, here's how you use a belt sander," you're like, "Okay, I can do this," but you walk out thinking, "Damn, I got that, but I don't really care. I guess I'll just learn this for the test and I'll forget about it."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
True.
a lot of medical education is like that.
Yeah.
I think you guys have a lot of problems to solve.
Mhm.
And if I can make it clear what problem you need to solve, then usually people are interested in finding the solution out. So that's what my technique.
Yeah. And do you feel like, from the students that you hear who do struggle on their tests, especially on that part, um, is it because of a lack of understanding of the questions?
I think that too many people are just trying to get through the courses.
Yeah.
You have an overwhelming amount of material to master, whether you're on a 6-year program or a 4-year medical school, and you're just trying to get through the test.
Yeah.
And it's also because in the face of, let's see, am I going to learn my pathology today, or am I going to spend, the evening on biostatistics? Well, you know what happens there
Yeah.
because it's clear why you need your pathology. It's not clear why you need the biostatistics.
Yeah. That's true.
So in at Rush several years ago, the anatomy department put in a course for first and second year surgery residents because they went to medical school and they passed their anatomy, but they didn't really understand why they needed it and why they
Yeah.
needed that level of granularity. And so now that they were in the bodies doing the surgery every day, now they have all these questions. And
Yeah.
the anatomy guy's there, let's talk about it. Let's help you understand it better. Once the problem's in front of you, then people are willing to listen and not like I'm learning this because some authority told me to learn it, but I'm a professional and I want to be able to do my job. And so now I'm going to learn what I need so I can do my job. And it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
I've taught in different contexts. I've taught a lot of doing research with people, doing research
Yeah.
with doctors that because they don't know how to do the research and I do. So I come in and I get to stick my name somewhere in the article and do help them do the research. But they walk out, I'm sure, learning about the stuff because now they understand why they need it and they understand what it means going forward.
Yeah, yeah. And like some like basically and you're right, because sometimes like even not only like doing the research, but when you see this like great paper out, about, this new study on, how this medication improves life expectancies 10 times, and you kind of read it, and then you're like, you know what, man, I'm glad that I studied some biostats. Or if you're kind of like weak in it, you kind of go back and you kind of, research, hey, what's the p-value again?
Well, and I'm not responsible for this, but there's a set of questions on step two and step three now that everybody hates. But
Yeah,
if you step back your objective, and I'm trying to see if you're going to be ready to practice medicine, they're great questions. Those are the ones where they give you the research article, the abstract, the drug
yeah,
ad, and they say, they ask you questions about it.
yeah,
And my comment was always, of course you want to know this.
yeah,
The drug rep's going to come in and try to blow smoke up your orifice.
yeah,
And you got to be intelligent enough to be able to say what you're talking about is nonsensical or just get the information that you need. And so asking people to demonstrate they have that skill set on the exam, I have to tell you, that makes sense to me. Now, people don't like those because that takes you beyond the memory exercise. But as I don't know if anyone, the exam's not a memory exercise.
yeah, sure.
There's a big debate in the United States about whether we should teach to the exam. And I've got a clear answer. Yeah, if it's a good exam.
Yeah,
So if people are teaching the exam and they're saying that's a terrible thing, it's because it's a crappy exam. But this is a good exam. Right? And I've said this to, I don't know, 1,000 classes in my lifetime. If you can't handle this exam, you shouldn't be a doctor.
that's true.
And that said, anyone that got into medical school should be able to handle the exam. It's just about learning what you need, how you need to think in order to handle the exam.
Yeah,
What hurts people is they think it's a memory exercise.
yeah, yeah. And that's the beauty of the exam is, right, it truly tests your ability to apply what you learn. It's just not like it's not direct questions, like
Yeah,
you're kind of analyzing.
I had I won't mention names, of course, but I worked with a student about, it must have been 15 years ago, that had an eidetic memory.
Yeah,
You pick up a page of Robbins and glance at it, and if you ask him what was on the third paragraph, two sentences down,
wow,
he could tell you. Right.
wow.
He was talking to me because he failed the exam.
What? That's crazy.
It's not a memory exam.
Yeah,
And as I told him, your problem is your memory's so good, you've never learned to do the thinking part. And so
yeah,
we had to sit down and do thinking exercises, which he could do. He's a smart guy. But,
yeah.
if you never learn to do the task, you don't know how to do the task.
That's true.
It's the
That's true.
same thing that we sometimes find that I've done research on this in my career. People that were really, really, really good students in high school or college, let's say, like everything was easy for them. When they hit medical school, they often have a real hard time
Yeah,
because they never learned how to study. They were just so good at absorbing material. When we crank up the difficulty, they don't have the skill set to be able to do the problem solving to get where they have to get. And so it's just about learning how to do that. And so
yeah,
the hardest part of the teaching is not the content, it's getting people to understand we need you to do this thought process. And I've learned if I talk a lot about the thought process, nobody wants to hear it. So we just do it.
yeah, yeah. And that's true because like you often see, and I don't know if it's a little bit of like students who think maybe like they've been really good before, so maybe this test is not that they don't need to learn how to how to take the test, right? Before even studying for the test. You see a lot of students fail their first time and then kind of it dawns on them and they're like, you know what? I really got to take this thing like more seriously on what these questions are, how to do it. And then they pass the next time and the next attempt, and then it kind of like it drills from there.
Well, I'm happy with those stories. The ones I see that they call me, come to me, is when they've failed twice.
Oh yeah, that's tough.
But okay. Here's what happens. We'll be clinical second.
Yeah,
So they say it's going to be okay. I did well in medical school. I was a good student. They go and they take the exam and they fail.
yeah,
And they hear from their parents, you didn't work hard enough. So they go and they really work hard,
yeah,
memorizing more stuff, ingesting more stuff, reading more books. And they go in and they fail the second time.
yeah,
And they say, what did I do wrong? I said, well, let's see. You did something that didn't work. And so you said, ooh, what I must do is do a lot more of that.
yeah, yeah.
No, that's not going to work. You have to do something different. If you
That's
were
true.
treating your patient and you gave a course of medication and it wasn't working, you don't simply give more medication. You
Yeah,
sit down and relook at your options, think about what else is possible, understand what's unique about the patient, and well, you got to handle the exam the same way.
yeah, yeah.
The people that learn rotely have trouble. The people that are, well, and look, I guess I'll say this. You didn't ask, but I'll bore you with this. Part of my fascination and my skill set is I just study how people think.
Hmm.
And the exam wants you to think a certain way. So
Yes.
I get I've had a lot of time with people that went to medical school after study engineering, and they have a
Okay.
terrible time with the exam
Yeah.
because they think like an engineer, which is great, but the exam doesn't want you to think like an engineer.
Yeah.
So my son's an engineer. He said, I'm thinking about becoming an engineer. I said, good choice. He said, what do you mean? I say, you're my son. I know you. You think like an engineer. The way engineers think, you think. You should
Yeah.
go into a profession where the way you think is what matches. I've had people that one woman was a great artist,
Mhm.
did wonderful paintings, smart woman too, but couldn't pass the exam because the very creativity that made her a good artist made it difficult for her to plow through the questions the way she was supposed to. She would be thinking about all these other things, and the person that wrote the question was not expecting you to think about these things. They're expecting you to drive down the highway they gave for you, and
Yeah.
just so it's all about thinking the way they want you to think. The examiners have basically decided, and I know people that have been on the committees, they want students to think a certain way. And if you think that way, you're head of the pack. And if you don't think that way, that's what exam prep's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, how long, from your experience, how long does it take to, really talk to students or guide students in thinking that way?
Depends where you are in the process. So if you don't have the knowledge, then there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
If you have the knowledge, but you don't have the thought process, there's a lot of work to do. There's a little bit more work to do. If you have the thought process and the knowledge, but you don't know how to think through the questions, then there's a third piece to do. So when I talk to students, I try to figure out where they are in the process. So somebody that comes in and they took the exam and they failed by a huge amount, well, that's a knowledge problem. They're not even
Yeah.
in the ball game. So that's a course of study where you have to get the knowledge in. Somebody that has a lot of knowledge, but they just can't answer basic questions. If I say, then that's a different problem. And then handling the exam questions, well, the number one problem with that is people try to study by doing a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
But if your
That's what
process
everybody
is
tells you, like, do questions, do millions of questions.
great, great, great. And all right, I'll use this. I have the world's worst golf stroke.
Okay.
Whenever I stand on a tee and I hit the ball, it goes nowhere that I want it to go.
Okay.
So one day I decided I got to change this. So I went out and I got, I don't know, like 400 golf balls.
Okay.
Got on the tee at the driving range. I hit all 400 golf balls. I am now the best person in the world at the world's worst golf swing because all I
Yeah,
did was ingrain all my mistakes,
yeah, that's true.
practicing them over and over again. So, yeah, do questions after you've learned how to do questions.
That's true.
Because otherwise, all you're going to do is get ingrained in doing them the wrong way.
That's
So,
true.
when I say this, it should make common sense. And it always amazes me. Yeah, it doesn't amaze me anymore. Doctors are smart people, but they don't apply that logic to themselves.
Yeah,
You'll apply that to somebody else. You'll give advice to somebody else. But I need to work harder is so ingrained in the culture, so ingrained in your studies
yeah,
that working harder instead of learning to do the right thing and then working harder, that's not really where the conversation is. So, and I'm used to seeing people that are having some struggles that haven't learned to do the thought process. So please hear anyone that's listening to this. I'm not saying no doctor knows how to do this. Some people know how to do this intuitively. They have the
mhm,
right thought process. People that come from families that are physicians have a lot of
yeah,
physicians in them. For example, might have that just unthinkingly. They have heard that process. Just like people that grew up in law families, where everyone's a lawyer, they
yeah,
understand the law just intuitively. They understand the thought process.
yeah,
Um, so I'm not saying everyone has these processes, but I am saying people that are doing the preparation, you have to accept that you're learning the content, how to think, and how to handle the questions. And when I'm talking to students, I'm diagnosing where's the problem here going forward. So
yeah,
people say, how long should I study? I don't know. What's your problem?
yeah. That's true. That's true.
If you
And,
got a
and
good
you,
if you got a good basis in content, I mean, a lot of
yeah,
people, I won't mention the country. I've worked with people from a particular country where I don't think they learn anything in medical school, and I mean nothing in medical school. If they,
mhm.
I talked to a faculty member that said a student came up during lecture and said, "What's a cell?"
What?
When I say they don't learn anything, you need to understand what I'm saying here.
That is
So,
crazy.
so they need tremendous time on content. It's the worst
Yeah,
case scenario.
yeah,
If you have pretty good content, you went to a school, you were diligent, did your work. I mean, I talked to another student who went to Caribbean school and failed the exam.
yeah.
And I said, "What do you think's going on?" He said, "Well, I did a lot of scuba diving. I probably should have studied more." And I
Oh
said,
wow.
"Okay, so you need to, once again, that's a content issue.
Yeah.
But just having the content issue doesn't do it for you. You have to then learn how to apply, as you say, think as I say, the material, and then you have to learn how to handle the questions. You have to have a strategy that lets you handle the questions quickly,
Okay.
efficiently. You have to not try to short circuit the question where you're looking for the buzzword because I've told
Because
again
that can be
thousands
a
of
gotcha
classes.
moment, right? If you, oh, there it is.
Well, you got to know the examiners know what buzzwords you're looking for.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, and so if I'm writing a question, I make sure the buzzword's there
Yeah.
and I make sure it's the wrong answer.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because it's designed to trick you, right?
No, it's designed that you can't get it right unless you think.
Yeah,
It's not
that's true.
tricking you. It's if you recognize the process,
Yeah.
then you'll do the process. And what happens is our brains are lazy. They do
Yeah.
not want to burn glucose.
Yeah.
You're tired at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's true.
And so you keep looking for shortcuts. And it's not, you're an athlete in training. This is the Olympics. There
Yeah.
is no shortcut. You got to do your training. And when you do your training, you'll go out, all right, you might not medal, but you'll get a good performance.
Yep. Yep.
If you don't want to do the work, then I don't want to help you be a doctor because I want my doctor to do the damn work.
That's true. That's true. That's true. So, and just thinking about, and you said like, it amazes me. You said, the level of thinking, and there's always. I had a debate with a doctor who was on the pod. I think so, 2 months ago, and he said the tests are really important, but just because you get a really high score on the test, that doesn't make you a good doctor. Do you think that's true?
Yes, it
Okay.
is. It is a necessary but not sufficient condition.
Okay.
So if you tell me you can't handle the exam, there's an issue.
Okay.
and I it's a good exam. I'm sorry. It's an exam that's absolutely tailored not to be. Come on, most of the exams you had in medical school, be honest with me, were
Yeah.
BS, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was BS. It was BS. It was
This
just
is
like,
not
yeah, it was
this
too
is not
simple.
that.
Yeah.
This is not that.
Yeah.
This is um I, I've said this in front of professional groups. Multiple choice tests are the perfect test for doctors
Yeah.
because multiple choice tests are about getting a set of options and choosing one of the options. And that's your medical career.
Yeah.
You walk in, you get your information, you have a set of options, and then you choose among the options. So I went to, I've taught in England from time to time, and they make people still take essay exams. And I've sat with faculty go, this is stupid.
Yeah.
What patient is ever going to come in and say to you, um, please explain the functioning of the parathyroid gland?
Yeah. Doesn't make sense.
Why? Why? That's a dumb question to ask a doc. If you can do that, okay, but that tells me nothing about how good a doctor you're going to be because no one's going to. So, yeah, you need to be able to handle the exam. Now, minimum standard is what the step one is now. I'm not in favor of that because too many program directors tell me they like to have those exams because it helps them select through the pack.
Yeah.
If you're if you're let's see, I'll use this program. If you're in Brigham and Women's um and you got 10 internal medicine slots, they're
Yeah.
getting 1,000 applications.
That's true. It's
They're not going to
competitive.
read they're not going to read the 1,000 applications. And I know
Yeah.
people go, what do you mean they're not going to read? And I say, you wouldn't read them either.
Yeah. That's so true. That's so true. People don't think it that way though.
Well, okay, and I'll say this because I had one thing I wanted to make sure I said in this pod. When people are thinking about applying to residency, my number one piece of advice is remember you're applying to people like you.
Yeah.
These are not some mysterious figures. These are you 10 years from now.
Yeah,
Do
that's true.
people always say, what should be on my application? And I always say, I don't know, what would impress you?
Yeah, that's true.
So, would a high score get your attention? Probably.
Yeah,
But would you look for something more than that? What else you looking for?
that's also true.
So most people use the score to select the pool of people, and then they're going to choose among that pool of people. Because remember, they got 10 slots and they
Yeah.
now maybe have 200 people based on the score. So there's still a lot of selection that goes on. So if you don't know the score, you're not going there. But if you know the score, why the hell do you apply to Harvard, Brigham and Women's in the first place, you idiot? You knew
Yeah.
that you're not going to make the cut, so stop it.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. All right, so going into like this world of, AI and where like, these la large language models being like super
Yeah.
easy to access, how do you think it changes test prep, especially like in your industry right now?
Well, it's not clear to me why letting some large language model do your thinking for you would help you think better.
Yeah. Because a lot of people are saying, you know what, maybe I can, just use this and do more questions or whatever. So it's like, and there's a fear out there that maybe like studying medicine will not be the same again.
Well, in some sense, medicine has already changed dramatically in my lifetime. I don't want to sound like the old guy here, but it's dramatically in my lifetime.
Yeah,
You all got cell phones. You
yeah,
want to look something up? Look it up.
yeah. That's true.
You want to look up standard dosing? It's right there. Just turn aside,
Yeah,
and you got what you need. And so you don't got to waste your time on that stuff. Your brain can now do the things that humans can do that the machine can't do.
mm,
Um, y AI is a useful tool like anything else.
yeah,
And the question is, how can the tool make you better? You're not serving the tool. That's the danger. The tool's supposed to serve you. So I'll fall back where I always do. I got an image about what I want my doctor to be.
yeah,
So I'll tell you something not many people know. I'm a two-time cancer survivor.
Okay. Wow.
I know what I want my doctor to be.
Yeah.
And so I've always known that. And so when I'm sitting there talking to a class of students, I'm thinking, this is what I want you to know if you're my doctor or if you're a family member's doctor and you're in this situation.
Yeah.
So how's AI going to help you do a better job with that? You know what? I've heard people say I can have one of the AI models make flashcards for me.
Yeah.
And my reply is, why? Two things. One, it's the making of the flashcard that is the most engaging part of the process. And so making flashcards is really helping you a lot. You're writing it, you're actually having to write out what it is. Um, I'll tell this story. There was one time in my life, this is back in high school, I was going to cheat on an exam.
Okay.
Time was short. I really didn't study. And so I made myself a cheat sheet. I got a little piece of paper. I decided what mattered. I wrote out all the things that mattered. I looked up in things in books. I wrote all the things that mattered. I wrote it down. And then I realized that I knew everything that was on the cheat sheet and I didn't need the cheat sheet. And I went and took the exam and did just fine.
Wow. That's true because as you're writing it, it's kind of like it's being ingrained in your brain.
Basic neuropsychology. More sensory involvement means more retention and more understanding.
Yeah.
So the more you let something else do it for you, the worse it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like when I was teaching at Becker many years ago. I liked the technology we had. We could project the book and write on the book because research showed that was a good way to get students to be engaged. They would write on the book as well, and doing something helps you remember it. None of this, here's the PowerPoint, here's the notes, because then you got two things to learn. Here's
Yeah.
the material, and you just learn the material. And it's by far, and by research as well, the best way to learn this stuff going forward. So
Yeah.
it's not clear now how AI helps you with that.
Yeah, yeah, that's clear. That's clear. And that's what I, recommend to people who, always ask me this question. I'm like, hey, like, how can, as you said, how can AI serve you, right?
Well,
That's the most,
okay. And here's one idea. You're sitting there and you're saying to yourself, I'll do a little psychiatry. How do I differentiate between whether the patient is manic, bipolar, or schizophrenic?
yeah,
Ask AI.
yeah,
They'll give you a list of differential criterion.
yeah. That's true.
Okay, and now I know you have another question, but there's one other thing I want to say that I think is important.
Yeah.
I've said this for a while to students. Everybody uses flashcards wrong.
Hmm.
If you're learning pharmacology, you write the name of the drug on one side of the card and then detailed information about the drug on the other side of the card, right?
Yeah,
No one's going to ask you that question on the exam.
that's true.
So your flashcard should reflect what you're going to see on the exam.
Hmm.
What should you have? Um, Top five most important drugs for treating this condition on one side.
Yeah,
Then the reverse side, the one or two, no more, one or two key reasons why you would pick this drug versus this drug, because that's pretty much the exam question, right?
yeah,
So I also like people when they're practicing questions to not just go through as many questions as they can. I want them to read the question, pick an answer, got to
mhm,
chase something, then find out whether or not you're right or wrong. Let's say you got it right. Yay, you got it right. All right,
yeah,
don't go to the next question. Hold on. Tell me how you would change that clinical case they presented you with so that a different answer was right. What would you change?
mhm.
Well, what else would you change to the clinical case where another answer is right? What would
Okay.
you have to modify so another answer is right? By the time you're done, you didn't do one question, you did five.
Yeah,
And by the way, that's also partly how the NBME cranks out questions.
yeah,
Change the data, change the answer. And so once you know the crucial for the differential, then the question seems straightforward and you laugh like an attending that's been practicing for a while and goes, well, I mean, of course, because it's this and this, it's got to be this thing over here. What are we talking about? And now you're thinking the way you're supposed to be thinking. This is when I mentioned before the thought processes, I'm now trying to squeeze in some illustrations. Okay, I'll shut up now.
Yeah. No, no, this is really fantastic. And and as you know, I'm a huge fan of your work and and
Ah,
everything that you do. I think it's really important. I think a lot of people have to pay attention to these kind of stuff. How do you like as a professional, like how do you protect your IP? Because I know in the world of internet, when you're teaching students, things get out there, like on
I
Facebook or
I
everywhere.
stopped giving out slides because they would
Yeah,
show up on other people's websites.
yeah,
Um, Otherwise, you know what? When I left Kaplan, I got a note from a student that says, "We're going to miss you." And I wrote back and said, "No, you won't. I'm on your hard drive." And the guy wrote back and said, "LOL." I said, "Of course you are."
yeah,
So I got enough people that had money to pay to take the courses that I took.
yeah.
So I did fine.
Okay,
So if there's somebody out there without resources that's got to pirate it from somebody or the friend of a cousin or somebody else, then great. And if that can help them, then I have no problem with it. It's
yeah,
also because the exam keeps changing and morphing. I mean, not like suddenly it's different, but every year it changes. So by 5 years, what were the right lectures 5 years ago are not quite the same right lectures today.
yeah,
And the tenor of the questions, I mean, again, I've been doing this for a while. I've seen the questions evolve. I've got a little drop in I sometimes would do when I'm teaching test taking strategy that just shows how questions evolved over the decades. And
yeah,
so it's also because even if they have my stuff on the hard drive, that's great, but the fresher stuff was always better than the old stuff. So
yeah, yeah. No, and look, and I think basically it's important for people to know that, hey, like because like even like what we talked about today, and kind of like working with you directly, understanding you directly, asking you questions. It's night and day compared to what somebody can find on a hard drive. So is there a way where if somebody's listening to this and it was like, hey, like maybe I want to like work with Dr. Doty for like an hour or two. Is there like do you offer consultation?
I do offer consultation. I pick and choose.
Okay.
So if I talk to somebody, I have to decide being semi-retired what I want to spend my time doing.
Yeah, that's true.
So somebody calls and says, I've taken the exam 4 times and I failed all 4 times. Can you help me? My answer is probably no.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you have 4 failures, you're not going to get a residency. So it's time to think about what your other options are.
Yeah, that's true.
So I believe in having. I'm kind of a direct guy, so I believe in having direct conversations with people. So I mean, I make a terrible oncologist because I don't, my bedside manner sucks. But I
Yeah.
believe that people need to know things. On the other hand, I've had students that called because they failed the exam and were horrified, and they said, "I'll never be a doctor." I said, "No, no, no. Have you ever failed anything in your life?" And they said, "No." I said, "Congratulations. You've now learned an important life lesson. Failure is possible. And
Yeah.
if you didn't know that, you shouldn't be a doctor."
Yeah. That's true.
So now let's talk about how to get you through the exam the next time. But you're now going to be a mature professional because you know the fact failure is possible.
Yeah.
And so that's the other side of it as well. And you got to work with it. You got. I students all the time say, what should I have when I'm applying to residency? I'm like, well, you are what you are.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
You can't suddenly, take on a magic wand and transform yourself to a different person. You have to be comfortable with who you are and have the confidence that somebody else out there will like you.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. It's true. Well, this has been amazing, the Dotary, and you really like. I think so. A lot of people listening to this will really rethink on how to look at questions and how to like think differently and how to think like a doctor.
Feel
Any
feel
last advice you would
well,
give
I was
people?
going to tell you, feel free to publish my email address.
Okay,
If people want to contact me, that's fine.
okay,
I will read and pick and choose and if people I will say this. I'm amazed how often um there's one or two key things that are missing, and once you take care of those, everything else falls in line.
yeah,
A lot of people are like a car that doesn't start. And all they say is my car doesn't start. But if you realize, well, your
yeah,
spark plugs are dirty, let's change your spark plugs, everything else is fine. So
yeah. That's true.
sometimes it's just a basic kind of thing. There's I get a call from a student at I won't name the school, but an Ivy League school
Mhm.
that was convinced if she was going to fail the exam. And she said, I got into medical school and they should never let me in because I'm not good enough. And I'm sorry, I just couldn't stop myself. I must have laughed for 30 seconds.
Yeah,
I said, the people that sit on the admissions committee, how stupid do you think these people are? They
yeah,
have seen thousands and thousands of candidates. And you think they looked at you and decided that you were good enough to come to the school and they got it wrong? It ain't likely. It's just not likely.
yeah.
That's
That's
true
true.
for that's true for almost everybody. Everybody thinks somehow they're the exception and they shouldn't be doing this. The question I always want to know is, do you want to do this?
Yeah,
I worked for a while with a guy who went to medical school, did the first 2 years, did step one, got a stellar score in step one,
yeah.
and then quit medical school right afterwards
Wow.
because he didn't want to do this.
Yeah,
But he couldn't tell his father no, but he could say to his father, look what I can do. I'm perfectly capable. This is what I want to do.
yeah.
So his father couldn't say, well, you're just a loser. You can't do this. He's like, I could absolutely do this. I don't want to do this. And he went on, did something else with his life, and he's very happy.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Well,
Well,
so you have to decide you want to do this.
yeah, yeah. So it's so like, all right. So we'll publish your email as well on
Okay.
on this podcast. And if people want to, reach out to you on social, is it like, are you on LinkedIn, Facebook?
You can find me on Facebook. I have a general Facebook page and I have a professional Facebook page. You're only allowed to have 5,000 followers on a basic Facebook page, and I've got 5,000. So
Yeah,
nobody else can follow me there. Excuse me, nobody else can friend me there. You can follow me. It's my name. Just search for Stephen Daugherty, or there's another one, a professional page called Dr. Stephen Daugherty, and you want to write through the message system there, you can do that.
yeah. Doherty, I'm so sorry. I've been getting your name wrong the whole interview.
Well, why wouldn't you? No one pronounces it like. Um, God, every job interview I've ever had, the first 5 minutes is how do you pronounce your name?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I'm not. I wasn't raised this way, but I was raised with the Irish pronunciation. So I'm going to try to
Mhm.
do this. If you have an Irish accent, it's Daugherty.
Doherty.
When I
Doherty.
go and I check in to a hotel in Dublin, they say, "Hello, Dr. Daugherty."
Doherty.
All
Nice.
right, but without the Irish accent, you got to decide what are you going to do.
Yeah.
So my family took the hard K
Okay. Doherty.
and say without the accent becomes Doherty.
Yeah.
Other people have taken the English way, which is to soften it and made it Dougherty.
Oh, yeah, a lot of people do that. That's what I
Well,
mostly hear.
so it's
Yeah.
despite what some people say, we are in a nation of immigrants, and people did what they were going to do to blend in. So I understand both pronunciations. I just say to people, pretend there's a K in it, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
My
Nice.
my uh, my nickname in high school was Doc.
Doc. Nice. I like
Not
it.
because they thought I was a doctor, just because no one could remember my name. So that was fine. But that's also how you remember it. So
Yeah. No,
um,
nice.
I,
Awesome.
I want to make sure I close with this. I'm always willing to help people. I've spent my life helping people.
Yeah.
get through these exams. It is a joy to me when I see someone when I'm walking through the hospital who's a resident or even attending who says they took a course and that helped them get through the process. And that's sort of, as I look back over my life, a nice thing. So I feel generativity. I'm happy to do what I can to help people going forward. I just want to work with people to do the work.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds good. Well, thanks for having us again. And hey, please, if you guys are not members of TIMGA, please sign up at timga.org. Sometimes we do provide free courses, and we might have Dr. Daugherty again to do a series as well. So thanks again, Dr. Daugherty, and hopefully we can have you soon.
All right. Thank you very much. I hope this was useful, and thank you for your invitation.
Awesome. All right, take it easy.